Alpha Queen entered the forbidden forest until the lunar wolf dog exposed a buried truth. I ruled the Silver Crown Kingdom with iron resolve for 5 years, believing my alpha wolf was enough to protect my people, enough to silence the whispers that a woman had no place on this throne, enough to bury the truth of what I really was beneath crowns and council meetings and carefully controlled power. I was wrong about all of it. The moment everything changed, I was sitting on that damned throne, cold silver that never warmed no matter how many hours I spent there, listening to Lord Aldrich drone on about grain shipments and border patrols. The afternoon light slanted through the stained glass windows, painting the stone floor in fractured rainbows that reminded me of my mother's magic. The magic I'd spent 5 years pretending didn't run through my veins like liquid moonlight. Lunaris lay at my feet as he had every day since my coronation, massive and beautiful, and completely, utterly still. My wolf dog companion hadn't so much as lifted his head in 5 years. The court physician said there was nothing physically wrong with him. I knew better. Lunaris had gone dormant the day I locked away half of myself to claim this throne. Your Majesty, if I may have your attention regarding the matter of the Eastern, Lord Aldrich. I cut him off, not bothering to hide my exhaustion. We've discussed the eastern borders 3 times this week. My answer hasn't changed. We fortify the existing posts. We don't expand. His jaw tightened. Aldrich was my father's oldest advisor, a man who'd served the crown for 40 years, and believed that 40 years of service gave him the right to treat me like a child playing at queenship. Your Majesty, with all due respect, your father would have— My father is dead. The words came out sharper than I intended, echoing off the vaulted ceiling. Several council members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. I am queen. My word is law. Are we clear? The silence that followed tasted like resentment and barely concealed contempt. I'd tasted it so often in 5 years that it had become familiar, almost comforting in its predictability. At least I knew where I stood with these men who smiled to my face and plotted behind my back. Crystal clear, Your Majesty. Aldrich's voice dripped with false deference. Though I must remind you, the council has been exceedingly patient regarding the matter of your unmarried status. The nobles grow concerned. A kingdom needs heirs. A queen needs competent advisors who don't question her authority every God's damned day. My alpha power leaked into my voice, making it resonate with command. Half the council flinched. Good. Let them remember what I was, even if they'd never know the whole truth. We're done here. This session is— The doors to the throne room burst open. I was on my feet instantly, hand moving to the ceremonial sword at my hip, even though I knew it was mostly for show. My real weapons were my claws, my fangs, my alpha dominance, and the magic I never, ever used. The guards at the door looked startled but not alarmed, which meant whoever had entered had been allowed through. Still, no one interrupted a council session. No one. The man who strode into my throne room looked like he'd walked straight out of a battlefield and decided formal protocol could go to hell. Tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair that fell past his collar, and a scar cutting through his left eyebrow that spoke of violence survived. He wore a knight's armor, but it was battered and road-worn, and there was something about the way he moved, fluid, purposeful, dangerous, that made my wolf sit up and take notice inside my chest. And then Lunaris moved. For the first time in 5 years, my wolf dog lifted his massive head, and then he began to glow. The light started soft, like dawn breaking, silver white, and impossibly pure. It grew brighter, spreading from Lunaris's chest outward until he was radiant, luminous, a creature made of captured moonlight standing in the middle of my throne room. The assembled nobles gasped. Someone whispered a prayer. I couldn't breathe. Your Majesty. The stranger's voice was rough, like he didn't use it often, or like he'd spent too many nights shouting orders on battlefields. He dropped to one knee, but his eyes never left mine. They were storm gray, intense, and held secrets that called to something deep in my bones. I am Darius Blackthorn. I've traveled 3 months to find you. I bring news of the lunar prophecy. My heart stopped. Started again, too fast. The lunar prophecy was legend, myth, the kind of story old women told to explain why magic had fled the world a century ago. When the protective mages fell defending the realm from the dark witch Morgath, they say the moon goddess herself wept, and her tears became the lunar staff, an artifact of resurrection, of impossible power, stolen by raiders and lost to time. The lunar prophecy is a children's tale, Lord Aldrich said, recovering his composure faster than I did. Your Majesty, surely you won't entertain this vagabond's delusions. But I wasn't looking at Aldrich. I was looking at Lunaris, who was staring at Darius Blackthorn like he'd been waiting 5 years for exactly this moment. And I was trying very, very hard not to notice the scent that had filled the throne room the second Darius walked in. Cedarwood and wild magic, snowfall and something indefinably male that made my wolf want to shift, to hunt, to claim. Oh gods. Oh no. Stand, I commanded, proud that my voice didn't shake. Explain yourself, quickly. Darius rose in one fluid motion. Up close I could see more scars, one along his jaw, another disappearing beneath his collar. A man who'd survived things that should have killed him. The lunar prophecy is real, Your Majesty. The lunar staff exists, and it can do exactly what the legends say, resurrect the fallen mages who once protected this realm. And you know this how? I kept my tone skeptical, even as something ancient and knowing stirred in my blood, because my parents died protecting it. The throne room went deadly quiet. Darius's expression didn't change, but I saw the grief there, carefully controlled, a wound that had never fully healed. 27 years ago, my mother and father, both witches of the Blackthorn Coven, gave their lives to hide the lunar staff from Morgath's descendants. I was 8 years old. I watched them work the spell that would bury it so deep that only the right people, at the right time, could find it again. Witches? Aldrich's voice was full of disgust. Your Majesty, this man admits to being witch-born. By law, the crimes of the parents don't transfer to the children, I said coldly. And I'll thank you to remember that our kingdom was built on the protection those mage witches provided before they fell. I turned back to Darius, ignoring the rage I could feel radiating from my counsel. You said you have fragmented visions. Explain. Something shifted in his expression. Surprise, maybe, that I believed him, or at least was willing to listen. The spell my parents used, it was blood magic. They tied it to me, their only child. For years I had nightmares, flashes of trees and silver light, and a place that felt like death and sanctuary all at once. It wasn't until I turned 30 that I understood what I was seeing. The Forbidden Forest. The staff is buried there, somewhere in the heart of the forest, hidden by magic that only specific bloodlines can penetrate. And you think I'm one of those bloodlines. It wasn't a question. I know you are. His eyes held mine, and for a moment the throne room fell away, and it was just us, just this impossible moment of recognition. The prophecy speaks of the Alfa queen who carries moonblood in her veins, the queen who buried her magic to claim her throne, the queen whose companion wolf dog would recognize the witch heir when he came. Every instinct screamed at me to deny it. 5 years of careful lies, of hiding my mother's shameful secret, that she'd been a witch, that she'd been burned for it when I was 10, that my father had spent the rest of his life pretending magic had never touched his bloodline. 5 years of suppressing every flicker of power, every whisper of the gift my mother had died for. And this stranger, this Darius Blackthorn, had just exposed it all in front of my entire council. Your Majesty, Aldrich's voice was tight with something between horror and triumph. Surely you will not dignify these accusations with, they're not accusations. Lunaris's voice filled my head for the first time in 5 years, ancient and vast and amused. They're truth, little Alpha. And you know it. I nearly staggered. Lunaris had never spoken before, not even when I was a child, and my mother was alive, and magic was still something I could admit existed. But now his presence filled my mind, warm and knowing and undeniably real. You can hear him too, Darius said quietly. It wasn't a question. He's showing you the forest. He's showing you the truth. And he was. Images flooded my mind. Silver trees and ancient magic. A staff made of moonlight buried beneath roots older than kingdoms. And 2 figures standing together, their hands joined, their power intertwined. The vision was so vivid I could smell the earth, feel the pulse of magic in the air. When I came back to myself, I was gripping the arms of the throne hard enough that my claws had extended, puncturing the ancient wood. The council was in chaos, lords shouting over each other, Aldrich demanding order, guards looking to me for direction. And through it all, Darius Blackthorn stood perfectly still, watching me with those storm-gray eyes that saw too much. Silence. The Alpha command in my voice was absolute. Every person in the room froze. I could feel my wolf rising, protective and possessive, and very, very interested in the man who'd just turned my carefully ordered world into chaos. "Lord Aldrich, clear the room. All of you. Now. Your Majesty, I must protest. Now." The weight of my command was absolute. They fled, practically tripping over themselves in their hurry to escape. Only Aldrich remained, his face pale. "Your Majesty, if even a fraction of what this man says is true." 7 days, I said quietly. "Give me 7 days before the council votes on anything. Anything at all. Do I make myself clear?" His eyes narrowed. We both knew what he wasn't saying, that the council had been preparing to call for a regency, that my cousin Marcus, another Alfa with impeccable bloodlines and a wife who'd already given him 3 sons, was waiting in the wings, that my refusal to marry, my insistence on ruling alone, had finally given them the excuse they needed. 7 days, Aldrich repeated, after which the council will vote on the matter of regency, for the good of the kingdom, you understand. Get out. He left. The doors closed, and I was alone with Darius Blackthorn, and a wolf dog made of moonlight, and the wreckage of every lie I'd built my reign on. "You're asking me to abandon my kingdom to chase a legend," I said finally, "to enter the forbidden forest, which hasn't allowed a living soul to emerge in 100 years, to find an artifact that might not exist, to trust a man I met 5 minutes ago. Yes, the simplicity of it almost made me laugh, and in return, we find the Lunar staff. You resurrect the protective mages who can defend your kingdom better than any army. Your throne becomes unassailable, and..." He paused, something vulnerable crossing his face. "And I ask that you also use the staff to bring back my parents. They deserve to see the world they died protecting." It should have been an easy decision. My kingdom needed those mages. I needed them. But there was something in the way Darius looked at me, something in the scent of cedarwood and wild magic that made my wolf want to howl, that made the magic I'd suppressed for 5 years press against my control like a living thing, and Lunaris was still glowing, his ancient eyes fixed on Darius with something like joy. "If we do this," I said slowly, "if we find the staff, the decision of who to resurrect belongs to me. Not you, not the council, me. Is that clear?" Something flickered across Darius's face. Calculation, maybe, or secrets kept, but he nodded. "Clear. Then we leave at dawn." The words felt like jumping off a cliff. "Prepare yourself, Darius Blackthorn. We're going to find your lunar staff, and may the moon goddess help us both." He smiled then, and it transformed his face, made him look younger, less haunted. "She already has, Your Majesty. She sent me to you." After he left to arrange supplies, I stood alone in the throne room with Lunaris, who had dimmed to a soft glow, but still watched me with eyes that had seen the rise and fall of empires. "You chose him," I whispered. "Why?" "Because he is yours," Lunaris replied, his voice thrumming through my bones. "And you have been alone long enough, little Alpha. It's time to remember what you are. All of what you are." I touched the spot over my heart where my mother's magic lived, dormant, but never dead. 7 days until the council voted. 7 days to find an impossible artifact or lose everything I'd fought for. But as I left the throne room, I caught the scent of cedarwood lingering in the air, and my wolf whispered a word I'd never let myself believe in. Mate. This was either going to save my kingdom or destroy everything, and I had no idea which scared me more. Dawn broke cold and merciless over the Silver Crown Kingdom as I stood at the edge of the forbidden forest, with a man I barely knew, and a wolf dog who'd been silent my entire life until yesterday. Smart people would have called this suicide. My council would have called it abdication. I called it the only choice I had left. "Last chance to turn back," Darius said, adjusting the pack on his shoulders. He'd shown up at the castle gates an hour before sunrise, prepared as if he'd never doubted I'd come. Arrogant bastard. He was probably right to be. I don't turn back. I checked my own supplies one final time. Dried meat, water skins, the silver dagger my father had given me on my 16th birthday. And beneath it all, wrapped in cloth soaked in wolfsbane to hide its scent, a small leather pouch containing my mother's grimoire, the only thing I'd saved from her pyre, the only proof that her magic had been real, had been mine, had been worth dying for. Lunaris pressed against my leg, still glowing faintly in the pre-dawn darkness. His warmth was reassuring, familiar, even though hearing his voice in my head yesterday had shattered everything I thought I knew about my companion. "The forest knows we're coming," Lunaris said directly into my mind, and I wondered if Darius could hear him too. It's been waiting. Fantastic, I muttered. Nothing says good idea like a forest that's been waiting for you. Darius's lips quirked. Having second thoughts, Your Majesty? I'm having all the thoughts. I'm just choosing to ignore most of them. I squared my shoulders, feeling my alpha power settle into my bones like armor. Let's go find your staff before my kingdom falls apart. The moment my boot crossed the invisible boundary between the kingdom and the forbidden forest, magic slammed into me like a physical blow. It started as a tingle in my fingertips, then raced up my arms and exploded in my chest where my mother's power had lain dormant for 22 years. I gasped, stumbling, and Darius's hand was immediately on my elbow, steadying me. His touch sent another shock through my system. Not magic this time, but something equally dangerous. The mate bond, growing stronger with every moment we spent together. Aurora? His use of my name instead of my title should have annoyed me. Instead, it felt intimate, like he was seeing past the crown to the woman beneath. Are you all right? Fine, I lied, even as power continued to surge through my veins, awakening parts of myself I'd thought were dead. Just, the forest has opinions about me being here. It's welcoming you, Lunar said, his presence in my mind stronger now, more solid. You're the first witch of royal blood to enter these woods in a century. The magic recognizes you. The trees seemed to lean toward me as we walked deeper into the forest, their ancient branches creaking like old women gossiping. The air was thick with power, heavy with secrets, and smelled of earth and growing things, and something else, something that made my skin prickle with warning. Stay close, Darius said quietly. The forest is alive, and not everything in it is friendly. He didn't need to tell me twice. The forbidden forest had earned its name 100 times over. People who entered didn't come back. Expeditions vanished. Even the strongest alphas who'd tried to hunt here had never returned. And yet here I was, walking deeper into the green darkness with a stranger and a mystical wolf dog, chasing a legend. The first whispers started an hour in. They were so soft at first that I thought I was imagining them. Voices like wind through leaves, speaking words I couldn't quite hear. But they grew louder, more insistent, until I could make out fragments. Queen of lies, buried her mother's gift, ashamed, unworthy. Ignore them, Darius said sharply. They're guardians, spectral protectors. They test everyone who enters. Test them how? But I already knew. The whispers were growing more specific, more cruel. She watched her mother burn and did nothing. 10 years old and already learning to hide. Alpha father who pretended magic never existed. Crowned herself on lies. My chest tightened. These weren't just random accusations. These were my deepest shames, my most carefully guarded secrets, being spoken aloud in a voice that sounded disturbingly like my own. She fears being weak, fears being like her mother, fears the power in her own blood. Shut up, I growled, my alpha dominance leaking into the words. You don't know anything about me. Don't we? The voices coalesced into forms, translucent figures that appeared between the trees, neither fully solid nor completely transparent. Guardian spirits, their eyes hollow and knowing. We know everything, false queen. We know you rule on half-truths. We know you're afraid. One of them drifted closer, and I could see her face now, or where her face should have been. Instead, there was just a blank oval that somehow still managed to look accusing. You let your mother die. You stayed silent while they burned her. You were ashamed. The words hit like arrows, each one finding a target I'd thought was protected. Because she was right. I had been ashamed. Ashamed of my mother's magic. Ashamed that people whispered about our family. Ashamed that I couldn't save her. Ashamed that part of me had been relieved when she died, and the whispers finally stopped. That's enough. Darius stepped between me and the spirits, and I hated how grateful I felt for the barrier of his body. Her past is her own. You have no right. We have every right. Witch son. Another spirit materialized. This one with a voice like breaking glass. She enters sacred ground bearing shame and lies. How do we know she's worthy? Because I choose to be here, I said, finding my voice despite the way my hands were shaking. Yes, I hid my magic. Yes, I was ashamed. But I'm here now, aren't I? I'm done hiding. The spirits laughed, a sound like wind chimes in a graveyard. Are you? Or are you simply desperate? Your throne crumbles. Your council plots against you. You didn't come here for truth, false queen. You came here because you have nowhere else to go. Darius's hand found mine, his fingers lacing through my own. and the contact sent a shock of warmth through me that pushed back against the cold accusations. "She's here," he said quietly, "because she's brave enough to face what she's denied. That's more than most can say." Something in his voice made me look at him, really look at him. There was understanding in his storm-gray eyes, and pain that matched my own. "You know what it's like," I said, "to hide what you are. I've been hiding for 27 years. His thumb traced circles on the back of my hand, unconscious comfort that my wolf wanted to lean into. "I'm a knight. Knights don't have magic. If anyone knew I was witch-born, I'd have been executed or exiled. So yes, Aurora, I know exactly what it's like to bury half of yourself to survive." The spirits watched us with their hollow eyes, and slowly, they began to fade. "Perhaps there is truth in you after all," the first one whispered. "But truth and worthiness are not the same. The forest will test you again, false queen, and next time, there may be no witch son to defend you." Then they were gone, leaving only the smell of old magic and older grief. I realized I was still holding Darius's hand. I should have let go, should have stepped back, reasserted the distance between queen and subject, between Alpha and whatever he was to me. But my wolf was purring at the contact, and the mate bond was singing in my blood, and I was so tired of being alone. "Thank you," I said quietly. "Don't thank me for telling the truth. He didn't let go either. Come on. We should make camp before dark. The forest gets more dangerous when the sun sets." We found a clearing beside a stream that ran so clear I could see smooth stones on the bottom. Lunaris immediately went to drink, his silver glow reflecting in the water like captured starlight. Darius moved with practiced efficiency, building a fire, laying out bedrolls, setting up a perimeter that wouldn't actually stop anything magical, but might slow down mundane threats. I watched him work, trying not to notice the way his muscles moved beneath his shirt, trying not to think about how his scent, cedarwood and wild magic and something uniquely him, was everywhere now, soaking into my clothes, my hair, my skin. My wolf wanted to roll in it, wanted to mark him as ours, wanted to stop it. I told myself firmly, he's a means to an end. That's all. "Talking to yourself is the first sign of madness," Darius said without looking up from the fire he was coaxing to life. "Or so I've heard. Then I've been mad for years." I sat down across from him, grateful for the fire between us, for the barrier it created. "How long do you think it will take to reach the center of the forest?" 3 days if we're lucky, a week if we're not. The forest shifts. Paths change. Time moves differently here. He looked up, firelight casting shadows across his scarred face. "We might walk for hours and find ourselves back where we started, or we might take one step and end up miles away. The magic here is old, Aurora. Older than kingdoms. Older than the distinction between Alpha and Witch. It doesn't follow rules we understand. Fantastic." I pulled out some of the dried meat from my pack, chewing mechanically, even though I had no appetite. "Tell me about your parents. You said you watched them die. If you want to talk about it." Something shifted in his expression. Surprise, maybe, that I'd asked, or pain at the memory. But he started talking, his voice low and rough in the firelit darkness. "I was 8. We lived in a cottage at the edge of the Blackthorn lands. My family had been hedge witches for generations. Nothing powerful, nothing that threatened anyone. But then the dark witch Morgath started her campaign, and everything changed." He stared into the fire like he could see the past there. "She wanted the lunar staff. She'd kill anyone who got in her way. And my parents, they were chosen by the moon goddess herself to hide it. Why them? I don't know. Prophecy, maybe. Or just bad luck." His laugh was bitter. "They had 3 days to prepare. 3 days to create a spell that would hide the most powerful artifact in existence. They used blood magic. Their blood, my blood. They bound the location to my memories, so that even if someone tortured me, I wouldn't be able to tell them where it was. Not until I was old enough to understand what I was seeing. I thought about being 8 years old and watching your parents die. I thought about my own mother, the way she'd screamed as the flames took her, the way I'd hidden my face in my father's chest and wished I could unhear it. I'm sorry, don't be. They chose to protect something bigger than themselves. That's noble. That means something." He finally looked at me, and there was so much grief in his eyes that it hurt to witness. But I still miss them. Even after 27 years, I still wake up sometimes expecting to smell my mother's bread baking, or hear my father laughing at something ridiculous. My mother used to sing. The words came out before I could stop them. She had this voice like honey and smoke, and she'd sing these old witch songs while she worked her magic. Little spells, nothing dramatic, making plants grow, healing sick animals, helping women who couldn't have children. Good magic. Kind magic. What happened to her? I'd never told anyone the full story. My father had made sure of that. The official record said she'd died of a fever, but Darius had shared his truth, and the mate bond between us was pulling at my defenses, demanding honesty. Someone saw her use magic to save a child who was drowning. They called her a witch. The village elders came to our home, dragged her out, built a pyre in the town square. My voice was flat, emotionless, because if I let myself feel it, I'd shatter. My father was Alpha. He could have stopped them, but magic was illegal, and admitting his wife was a witch would have cost him everything. So he stood there and watched, and I stood next to him and did the same. Darius was quiet for a long moment. Then he moved around the fire and sat beside me, close enough that our shoulders touched. You were 10 years old. I was old enough to know it was wrong. You were a child watching your world burn. Literally. His hand found mine again, and this time I didn't pretend I wasn't desperate for the contact. Children shouldn't have to be heroes, Aurora. Sometimes survival is all we can manage. A sound escaped me that might have been a laugh or a sob. My father died when I was 22. His last words to me were, "Hide what you are, or you'll end up like her." And I did. I buried every trace of magic, every hint that I was anything but Alpha. I took the throne, and I swore I'd never be weak like my mother was. She wasn't weak. Darius's voice was fierce. She used her magic to save a child. That's not weakness. That's the strongest thing a person can do. And that's when I started crying. Not pretty tears, but ugly, wrenching sobs that came from somewhere deep and broken inside me. All the grief I'd never let myself feel. All the shame I'd carried for 22 years. All the loneliness of ruling alone and hiding what I was. It all came pouring out. Darius pulled me against his chest, one hand cradling the back of my head while the other wrapped around my waist. He didn't tell me it was okay. He didn't offer empty platitudes. He just held me while I fell apart, his scent surrounding me, his heartbeat steady beneath my ear. "I miss her," I finally whispered. "I miss her so much, and I hate that I was ashamed of her, and I hate that I'm still afraid to be what she was." "Then maybe it's time to stop being afraid." His breath was warm against my hair. "Maybe that's what this journey is really about. Not just finding the staff, finding yourself." I pulled back enough to look at him, and the tenderness in his eyes nearly undid me all over again. We were so close. Close enough that I could see the silver flecks in his gray eyes. Close enough to count the individual scars on his face. Close enough to feel his breath mixing with mine. Close enough to kiss. His gaze dropped to my mouth, and I felt the mate bond flare between us like lightning, hot and inevitable and utterly terrifying. Every instinct screamed at me to close the distance, to claim him, to give in to what we both felt burning between us. "Aurora," he breathed, and my name in his mouth was a prayer and a question and a plea. I wanted to say yes, wanted it so badly I ached, but I was a queen, and queens didn't get to follow their hearts. And if I kissed him now, I'd never be able to pretend this was just a political alliance. I can't. I pulled away, even though it felt like tearing myself in half. "I'm a queen, Darius. I can't afford to feel this." "Feel what?" His voice was rough, and I could see the same war playing out in his expression. "Whatever this is between us. This bond." I wrapped my arms around myself, cold now without his touch. I have a kingdom to protect, a throne to defend. I can't let myself be weak. Loving someone isn't weakness. It is when you're a queen. It is when every decision you make is scrutinized, when your enemies are waiting for any sign of vulnerability to exploit. I stood up, needing distance, needing air. "We're here to find the staff, that's all. Nothing more." Lunaris, who'd been lying by the fire, lifted his head and looked at me with those ancient, knowing eyes. "Liar," he said into my mind. "You can deny it all you want, little Alpha, but the bond is there, and it's only going to grow stronger." I ignored him, ignored the hurt in Darius's eyes, ignored the way my wolf was howling at me to go back, to claim our mate, to stop running from the one good thing we'd found in 5 years of isolation. Instead, I laid down on my bedroll, turned my back to the fire, and pretended I didn't feel Darius's gaze on me like a physical touch. Sleep came eventually, restless and full of dreams. I saw my mother burning, but this time when I looked closer, it was me on the pyre. I saw the throne room empty, My crown melted to slag. I saw Darius walking away into darkness while I screamed for him to come back. And then the dream shifted, and I saw something new. Lunaris was there, glowing brighter than ever, and I was standing in a great hall made of silver and moonlight. Darius stood beside me, but we were different. Crowned, both of us, with matching marks on our necks that glowed with the same light as Lunaris. Around us, people I didn't recognize bowed, and the air thrummed with magic so powerful it felt like standing in a storm. This is what could be. Lunaris's voice echoed through the dream. This is what the prophecy truly foretells. Not just the staff, not just resurrection, but union, balance, the Alpha Queen and the Witch Heir, bound as mates, ruling together with both power and magic restored. That's impossible, I breathed. Is it? Or is it simply what you're too afraid to reach for? I woke with a gasp to find dawn breaking, and Darius already up, his back to me as he packed. Lunaris was sitting between us, still glowing faintly, and when I caught his eye, he seemed almost smug. Did you show him the same vision? I asked silently. Perhaps. Or perhaps he dreams his own dreams. Either way, little Alpha, the truth is coming. You can deny it, but you can't escape it. I opened my mouth to argue, to demand answers, to... Aurora, Darius said, his voice tight. We have a problem. I scrambled to my feet, immediately on alert. What kind of... Then I saw them. We were surrounded. At least a dozen figures in dark robes formed a circle around our campsite, their faces hidden by hoods, their hands crackling with magic that tasted like rot and old blood. Dark witches. The leader stepped forward, pushing back her hood to reveal a woman with sharp features and eyes like black ice. Queen Aurora Silvercrest, Darius Blackthorn, and the legendary Lunaris. Her smile was all teeth. How convenient to find all three of you in one place. Seraphine Morgath, Darius breathed, and I heard genuine fear in his voice for the first time. You know who I am. Good. She moved closer, and the other dark witches tightened their circle. That will save time on introductions. You're looking for the lunar staff. So am I, and I think we can help each other. We want nothing from you, I said, letting my alpha power leak into my voice. Several of the dark witches flinched, but Seraphine just laughed. Oh, but you do. You want to save your kingdom. You want to resurrect those boring protective mages. You want to keep your throne. She tilted her head. I merely want to bring back my ancestor, the great Morgath, who was betrayed and killed before she could complete her work. Is that so different from what you want? Your ancestor was a mass murderer, Darius snarled. Your parents were traitors who stole what didn't belong to them. Seraphine's voice remained pleasant, but magic sparked around her fingers. Here's my offer. Tell me where the staff is hidden, and I'll let you both walk away. I'll even let you keep your little wolf dog. You get to live. I get to resurrect my ancestor. Everyone wins. And if we refuse, I was already calculating odds, escape routes, whether my untrained magic would be any use at all against a dozen dark witches. Seraphine's smile widened. Then I kill Lunaris first, slowly, while you watch. And then I kill your mate. And then, Queen Aurora, I take you alive and torture the information out of you piece by piece until you're begging to tell me everything. Lunaris growled, a sound like thunder, and his glow intensified until it was almost painful to look at. But even he couldn't fight a dozen dark witches. We were trapped, outmaneuvered, and out of options. So, Seraphine said pleasantly, what will it be? The word no left my mouth before I'd even fully processed what I was saying, but it came from somewhere deep and primal, the part of me that had watched my mother burn, that had spent 5 years bowing to men who thought I was less than them. That was done, so utterly done, with being threatened. No, Seraphine repeated, her amusement fading into something cold and dangerous. You're refusing? Do you understand what... That's when the magic exploded out of me. I didn't plan it, didn't control it. 22 years of suppression, of denial, of pushing down every flicker of power that reminded me of my mother burning. It all came roaring out in a wave of pure lunar magic that turned the clearing silver white and sent half the dark witches flying backward like they'd been hit by a battering ram. The power felt like lightning in my veins, like moonlight made solid, like everything I'd denied myself suddenly demanding to be acknowledged. I heard myself scream, but it wasn't pain. It was release. It was rage. It was finally letting go of the shame that had chained me for so long. Aurora. Darius was moving, his own magic crackling around his hands. Shadow magic, I realized distantly, the kind that could cut and bind and kill. He caught one of the dark witches who'd been advancing on Lunaris, and the shadows wrapped around her throat until she dropped, unconscious. Lunaris was changing. I felt it through our bond, felt his form shifting and expanding until the wolf dog I'd known my entire life was gone, replaced by a massive silver wolf that stood taller than a horse, his eyes blazing with ancient power, his fangs bared in a snarl that shook the ground. "Kill them!" Seraphine shrieked, and the remaining dark witches attacked. What followed was chaos. My magic was wild, untrained, responding more to emotion than intention, but it was powerful. When a witch sent fire at Darius, I threw up a shield without thinking, and the flames splashed against silver light like water against stone. When another tried to bind Lunaris with chains of dark magic, I shattered them with a thought. But I'd never fought with magic before, never trained, never learned control, and every spell I threw took something from me. Energy, strength, pieces of myself I couldn't afford to lose. Darius fought like he'd been born to it, shadows dancing around him like living things, protecting and attacking in equal measure. He moved with deadly grace, and I realized this wasn't the first time he'd fought dark witches. He knew their tricks, their patterns, their weaknesses. Lunaris was magnificent and terrifying, his massive jaws closing around one witch's arm, his claws raking across another's chest. He moved like liquid silver, faster than anything that size had any right to be. "Enough!" Seraphine's voice cut through the battle, and I felt her power gather like a storm. "If you won't tell me willingly," she threw something at Lunaris, a dart, glowing with sickly green magic. It hit him in the shoulder, and he stumbled, his massive form flickering. "No!" The word tore from my throat, and I threw everything I had left at Seraphine. All my rage, all my fear, all my newly awakened power. The magic that erupted from me was pure white, so bright it hurt to look at, and it hit Seraphine square in the chest. She screamed and vanished, teleporting away. The remaining dark witches followed her lead, disappearing in puffs of black smoke until we were alone in the clearing. For a moment, everything was silent, except for my ragged breathing and the pounding of my heart. Then my legs gave out. Darius caught me before I hit the ground, his arms strong and steady around my waist. "I've got you," he murmured. "I've got you." Lunaris. I tried to look for my companion, but my vision was blurring, darkness creeping in at the edges. "He's fine." The dart was meant to slow him, not kill. "But you, Aurora, you use too much magic. Your body isn't used to—" I didn't hear the rest. The darkness swallowed me whole. I woke to firelight and pain. My body felt like one massive bruise, my head pounding, my magic completely depleted in a way that felt like starvation. For a moment I couldn't remember where I was, couldn't remember anything except the feel of power leaving my body in waves. "Easy." Darius's voice, soft and close. "Don't try to move yet." I forced my eyes open. We were in a cave, small and hidden, with a fire burning near the entrance. Lunaris was there too, back in his normal wolf-dog form but still glowing faintly, curled up near my feet. And Darius was beside me, his face lined with worry, his hand resting on my forehead. "How long?" My voice came out as a rasp. 6 hours. The sun's setting." He pulled his hand back, and I immediately missed the contact. "You were burning up. I've been trying to keep your fever down with cold water and herbs, but—" He gestured to a collection of plants beside him. "My mother taught me some healing remedies before she died. I'm doing what I can. You don't have to." I tried to sit up, and immediately regretted it as the cave spun. "Yes, I do." His hand was on my shoulder, gentle but firm, easing me back down. "You saved my life out there. You saved Lunaris. Let me return the favor." I was too weak to argue, too weak to do anything but lie there and let him take care of me, which should have made me feel vulnerable and helpless, but somehow didn't. Maybe because the way he looked at me wasn't pity. It was something else, something that made my wolf want to curl into him and never leave. "I saw your magic," he said quietly, wringing out a cloth in cold water and pressing it to my forehead. "It was, Aurora, it was beautiful, powerful, like watching the moon itself come down to earth. It was terrifying. The admission came easier than it should have. I had no control, no training. I just felt, and it responded. That's how magic works for most of us at first. My parents spent years teaching me control. His hand was gentle as he brushed sweat-dampened hair back from my face. "You'll learn." With practice, with time. I don't have time. The words were bitter. I have a kingdom falling apart, a council that wants me gone, enemies who want me dead. I can't afford to learn magic like a child learning to read. Then maybe you need to stop thinking of it as learning and start thinking of it as remembering. He settled beside me, close enough that I could feel his warmth. The magic is in your blood. It's been there all along. You just have to stop fighting it. Stop fighting. As if it were that simple. As if 22 years of fear and shame could be undone with a few words. But lying there in the firelight, weak and vulnerable, and too tired to maintain my usual walls, I let myself consider it. What would it mean to stop fighting? To embrace what I was fully, Alpha and witch, queen and woman, powerful and afraid, and everything in between. Tell me about your coronation, Darius said suddenly. What was it like the moment you took the throne? The fever must have been affecting my judgment because I started talking. It was 3 days after my father's funeral. The council wanted me married first, to Marcus, my cousin, or to some foreign prince who could guide me, but I refused. I stood in the throne room with my father's crown in my hands, and I made a choice. What choice? To bury my mother's legacy completely, to deny the magic in my blood, to be only Alpha, only queen, only what they could accept. My voice cracked. I felt my power that day, felt it rising up like it wanted to be acknowledged, and I pushed it down, locked it away, told myself I was being strong, being smart, but really I was just being a coward. You were surviving. His hand found mine, fingers lacing together. There's no shame in that, isn't there? The tears came without permission, hot and bitter. My mother died rather than deny what she was, and I built my entire reign on that denial. What does that make me? Human, complicated, doing the best you could with an impossible situation. He squeezed my hand. Aurora, you need to hear this. You're not your mother. You don't have to die for your magic to matter. You can live. You can rule. You can be both queen and witch, and anyone who says otherwise is wrong. I wanted to believe him. Wanted it so badly it hurt. But 5 years of isolation, of hiding, of being constantly on guard, it had left scars that went deeper than magic could heal. I'm scared, I whispered. I'm terrified that if I let myself feel this, let myself be this, I'll lose everything. The throne, my control, myself, or maybe you'll finally find yourself. He moved closer, and I could smell him, cedarwood and wild magic and something that was purely Darius. Can I tell you something? Something I've been holding back since the moment I walked into your throne room? I nodded, not trusting my voice. You're my mate, Aurora. The words were soft but absolute. I knew it the second I saw you. The bond, the recognition. It hit me like lightning, and I know you felt it too. I consented on you. See it in the way your wolf responds to mine. We're meant for each other. The moon goddess herself chose us. My heart was racing. The mate bond pulling tight between us like a rope made of starlight. Mates are a weakness. They're leverage. They're strength. He cupped my face with his free hand, his touch achingly gentle. My parents were mates. They died together protecting something bigger than themselves. That wasn't weakness, Aurora. That was the purest kind of courage. They faced death together and they didn't flinch. And you think we could have that? I wanted to pull away, wanted to rebuild my walls, but I was so tired of being alone, so tired of pretending I didn't feel the bond burning between us, didn't want what he was offering. You think I can be your mate and still be a queen? I think you can be anything you choose to be. And I think fighting this bond is killing you as surely as fighting your magic. His thumb traced my cheekbone, and I shivered despite the fever. I'm not asking you to give up your throne. I'm asking you to share it, to let someone stand beside you instead of always standing alone. Before I could respond, before I could decide whether to accept or deny what we both knew was true, the cave began to glow, not with firelight or Lunaris's gentle radiance, but with silver-green light that pulsed like a heartbeat. The stone walls became transparent, revealing an enormous tree that shouldn't have been able to fit in the cave, shouldn't have been able to exist anywhere in this world. The ancestral tree. I'd heard stories. Every witch child did. The oldest, wisest tree in the Forbidden Forest. A being of pure magic that tested those it deemed worthy. Aurora Silvercrest. The tree's voice was like wind through branches, like roots growing through earth. Darius Blackthorn, you have been brought before me for judgment. I struggled to sit up, every muscle protesting. Darius helped me, his arm around my waist, solid and reassuring. Lunaris moved to stand in front of us, protective, even though I suspected the tree could destroy all three of us with a thought. "What kind of judgment?" I asked, proud that my voice didn't shake. "A choice." Branches reached toward us, close enough to touch but not threatening. "You seek the lunar staff. You wish to resurrect the fallen, to restore balance. But the staff is not a toy. It demands sacrifice. So you must choose, Alpha Queen. Choose between power and love, between duty and desire. A choice. Of course it was a choice. It was always a choice. If you choose power," the tree continued, "you will find the staff. You will resurrect the protective mages. Your kingdom will be saved, your throne secure. But you will lose your mate. The bond between you will be severed, never to reform. Darius Blackthorn will walk away into the forest, and you will never see him again." I felt Darius tense beside me, felt the bond between us pull tight with shared fear. "If you choose love," the tree said, "the bond will remain. You will have your mate, your happiness, the life you've never allowed yourself, but the staff will remain hidden. The mages will stay dead. Your kingdom will fall, and you will lose your throne. You will have love, but nothing else." It was an impossible choice, a cruel choice, power or love, queen or woman. Everything I'd worked for, or everything I'd never let myself want. Choose now, Aurora Silvercrest. Choose what you truly desire. I looked at Darius, saw the fear in his eyes, the desperate hope. I felt the mate bond singing between us, strong and true and utterly terrifying. I thought about 5 years of loneliness, of ruling alone, of pretending I didn't need anyone. And then I thought about my mother burning, choosing magic over survival, about Darius's parents dying together, choosing love and duty in equal measure. "No," I said. The tree's branches rustled with what might have been surprise. "No, no, I won't choose." I stood, swaying slightly, but I stood. "This isn't a real choice. It's a test to see if I'll divide myself again, if I'll choose one half over the other. But I'm done with that. I'm done splitting myself into acceptable pieces." "You refuse the test?" The tree's voice held something that might have been amusement. "I refuse to choose between being Alpha and being witch, between being queen and being woman, between duty and love." I felt my magic stirring, responding to my conviction even though I was still depleted. "I am all of those things. Not one or the other. All of them together, at the same time. And if that's not acceptable to you or the moon goddess or anyone else, then to hell with all of you." Darius made a sound that might have been a laugh or a sob. Lunaris's glow intensified, and the ancestral tree laughed, deep and rich and genuinely pleased. "Finally," it said. "Finally, an Alpha Queen who understands." The test wasn't about choosing, Aurora Silvercrest. It was about refusing to choose, about claiming your wholeness instead of your fragments. The silver-green light grew brighter, and I felt something shift in the forest itself, like a lock clicking open. "You have passed. The path to the lunar staff is now open to you. But know this." The tree's branches reached out and touched my forehead. Darius's, Lunaris's. "The staff does not lie where you think it does. It does not hide. It waits. It has always been waiting. Not for the Alpha Queen alone, not for the witch heir alone, but for both, together, as one." The touch sent knowledge flooding into my mind, pieces of the prophecy I'd never heard, truths that had been hidden for a century. And at the center of it all was a simple, devastating fact. Darius and I weren't just mates by chance. We were prophesied, chosen, bound by destiny 100 years before we were born. When the tree faded, leaving us alone in the cave again, I turned to Darius. "You knew," I breathed. "You knew we were prophesied together." I suspected. He didn't look away, didn't try to hide it. The visions I had, they didn't just show the staff. They showed you, always you, standing beside me, crowned and powerful and mine. You should have told me. Would you have believed me? Would you have come if I'd told you that 100-year-old prophecy said we were destined mates? He stepped closer, and despite everything, the fear, the anger, the exhaustion, I didn't back away. "I'm telling you now, we're meant for this, Aurora. Meant for each other. The staff, the kingdom, all of it. It only works if we're together." Lunaris's voice filled my mind, ancient and amused and infinitely patient. "He speaks truth, little Alpha. I am the last fragment of the moon goddess's magic, bound to your bloodline to wait for exactly this moment. The lunar staff was never stolen. It was hidden, yes, but not from thieves, from time itself, until the Alpha Queen and the Witch Heir were both ready to claim it, until you were ready to be whole. I don't understand, but I did. I was just afraid to accept it. The staff can only be wielded by two people working as one, Lunaris continued. Alpha and Witch, Queen and King, mates who have accepted their bond fully. That's why it's been lost for a century, because no one like you has existed, no one willing to be both instead of one or the other. I looked at Darius, really looked at him, saw the scars from battles fought, the grief from parents lost, the hope that maybe, just maybe, this would work. And I felt the bond between us, so much stronger now than when we'd first met, pulling me toward him like gravity. I'm still scared, I admitted. So am I. He closed the distance between us, his hands settling on my waist like they belonged there. But I'm more scared of living without you, of walking away and spending the rest of my life wondering what we could have been. This time when he leaned in, I didn't pull away. I met him halfway, and when our lips touched, it felt like coming home, like finding something I didn't know I'd lost, like the world finally clicking into place. The kiss was gentle at first, almost tentative, both of us testing, tasting, learning. But then the mate bond flared between us, hot and demanding, and gentleness gave way to need. His hands tightened on my waist, pulling me closer. My fingers tangled in his hair, holding him to me like I was afraid he'd disappear. I could taste his magic on his tongue, shadow and smoke and starlight. Could feel his wolf recognizing mine, calling to it, claiming it. Could scent the change in his scent as desire mixed with the cedarwood and magic, making him smell like mine, like home, like everything I'd been denying myself. When we finally broke apart, both of us breathing hard, his forehead rested against mine. Aurora, he whispered, and my name was a prayer, a promise, a plea. I can't mark you yet. The words hurt to say. I want to. My wolf is screaming to complete the bond. But if I do that now, if I bind us before we find the staff, before I deal with my kingdom, I know. He pressed a kiss to my forehead, soft and understanding. I know. We have time. But even as he said it, I felt something shift, a warmth low in my belly that I recognized with shock and no small amount of panic. My heat cycle, the one I'd been suppressing with herbs for 5 years, because unmated alphas in heat were vulnerable, distracted, everything a queen couldn't afford to be. It was starting, and with my mate right here, the bond between us open and acknowledged, there would be no suppressing it this time. Darius went very still. Aurora, your scent just... I know. I pulled back, trying to ignore how every nerve ending was suddenly aware of him, how much I wanted to drag him back, claim him, mark him as mine. It's my heat. It's been years since I let it happen naturally, and being around you, the bond, it's triggering it early. He closed his eyes, and I watched him wrestle with control. How long? A few days, maybe. It'll build slowly at first. Then, I didn't need to finish. We both knew what happened when an alpha's heat hit full force with their mate nearby. The drive to mate, to mark, to complete the bond became overwhelming, instinctive, nearly impossible to resist. We'll deal with it. His voice was strained. We'll keep distance. Lunaris made a sound that might have been laughter. Oh, little ones, you really think you can resist destiny? The heat is part of the prophecy. The bond needs to be acknowledged physically, as well as emotionally, before you can claim the staff. We're not bonding before we get back to my kingdom, I said firmly. I won't risk... A sound from the cave entrance cut me off. Not an animal, not a natural sound. Magic, harsh and demanding. A figure materialized in the firelight, not physical, but a projection, translucent and flickering. A messenger spell, and I recognized the face immediately. Lord Aldrich, my chief counselor, the man who'd been waiting for any excuse to take my throne. Your Majesty, his voice dripped with false concern. I bring grave news. In your absence, the council has voted. Your cousin Marcus has been named regent. If you do not return within 3 days to challenge this decision, you will be deemed to have abdicated, and the regency will become permanent. 3 days. I was at least 2 days from the kingdom, even if I left immediately, and we were 2 days from the staff's location. Of course, Aldrich continued, should you decide to abandon this quest and return immediately, the council would be willing to reconsider. All you need do is renounce any claim to magical heritage and agree to marry a suitable alpha male of the council's choosing. The projection faded, leaving us in silence. I looked at Darius, looked at Lunaris, looked at the impossible choice before me. Leave now, possibly save my throne but lose the staff and everything we'd come for. Or continue forward, claim the staff and my mate, and lose my kingdom. We go forward, I said, surprised by how certain I sounded. We find the staff, and then I go back and fight for my throne. And this time, I do it as all of me, not as who they want me to be, as who I actually am. Darius smiled, fierce and proud. Together? Together. Outside the cave, the forest hummed with approval, and deep in my bones, I felt the heat building, felt the bond pulling tighter, felt my magic and my wolf and my heart all singing the same truth. I was done choosing, done splitting myself apart, done being afraid. Whatever came next, I would face it whole. We had 48 hours to find an artifact hidden for a century, claim it, and somehow get back to my kingdom before my cousin took everything I'd bled for. The smart choice would have been to turn back, to save what I could, to fight the political battle I actually had a chance of winning. But I'd spent 5 years making smart choices, and every single one had left me more alone, more fractured, more afraid. I was done with smart choices. You should go back, Darius said as we broke camp in the pre-dawn darkness, his voice carefully neutral. Your kingdom needs you, Aurora. I can finish this. I can find the staff, bring it to you after— No! The word came out sharper than I intended, my heat making me irritable, possessive, everything I'd trained myself not to be. The cycle had intensified overnight, and now everything about Darius called to me. His scent, his presence, the way he moved. My wolf wanted to drag him into the forest and complete the bond regardless of prophecies or politics or anything else. We'd do this together or not at all. He turned to look at me, and I saw the strain in his face. The mate bond was affecting him too, making it harder to maintain distance, harder to think about anything except the pull between us. Your throne. We'll still be there in 2 days, or it won't. But either way, I'm tired of running from what I want. I finished packing my supplies with more force than necessary. For the first time in my life, I'm choosing what I need instead of what's expected, and I need to see this through. With you. Something shifted in his expression. Relief, maybe, or hope, or the same desperate determination I felt burning in my chest. Together then. Together. Lunaris padded over to us, his glow brighter than it had been since we entered the forest. We must move quickly. The world tree lies at the heart of the forbidden forest. 2 days' journey if the forest allows it. But time moves strangely here. We may arrive in hours or weeks. The magic decides. Then we'd better convince the magic to cooperate, I muttered, slinging my pack over my shoulder and ignoring how even that simple movement made me aware of my body, of the heat building low in my belly, of how close Darius was standing. We moved fast, faster than should have been possible through dense forest undergrowth, but the trees seemed to part for us now, creating paths where none had existed, the magic recognizing us as somehow belonging here. My own power hummed just beneath my skin, no longer suppressed or denied, waiting to be called on. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. Time really did move differently here. The heat in my blood grew stronger, making it difficult to focus on anything except Darius's presence beside me, the scent of him filling my lungs with every breath, the mate bond singing its siren song of completion. Aurora. Lunaris's voice cut through the haze of instinct trying to override my reason. I need to show Darius something. It will require me to fully connect with him, to unlock the memories his parents sealed away. It will hurt, for both of you. I looked at Darius, saw him nod once, determined. Do it. Lunaris's glow intensified until he was almost too bright to look at, and then he placed his massive head against Darius's chest. The effect was immediate and violent. Darius cried out, dropping to his knees, his hands clutching at Lunaris's fur, and through the mate bond, I felt it, felt the memories flooding back, decades of locked-away trauma breaking free all at once. I was beside him in an instant, my arms around him, holding him as he shook. I've got you, I whispered. I'm here. And then the memories took me too. I saw through 8-year-old Darius's eyes as his parents worked their magic, blood and power, and desperate love woven into a spell that would hide the lunar staff from anyone who'd use it for evil. I felt his terror as dark witches surrounded their cottage, felt his mother's arms around him one last time, heard his father's final words. The world tree. Darius. Remember, when the time comes, When you find the Alpha Queen with moonblood in her veins, remember the world tree, the roots that touch the earth and the branches that touch the sky. That's where we'll hide our greatest treasure. I saw them die. Saw the dark magic tear through them as they completed the final spell. Saw Darius's screams go unheard. Saw him dragged away by neighbors who found him 3 days later, nearly dead from grief and starvation. When the vision released us, we were both crying, clinging to each other on the forest floor. Lunar stepped back, his glow dimmed from the effort, but satisfaction in his ancient eyes. The world tree? Darius gasped. That's where it is. The roots that touch the earth. It's buried at the base of the world tree. How far? I managed, still shaking from the emotional impact of his memories. If the forest is kind, Lunar said quietly, we're already there. I looked up and realized the forest around us had changed. The trees were older here, massive and ancient, their trunks wider than castle towers. And ahead, visible through the green darkness, was a tree that dwarfed all the others. A tree so vast it seemed to touch the sky itself, its roots spreading across the forest floor like rivers of living wood. The world tree. We made it, Darius breathed, wonder and fear mixing in his voice. After all these years, we actually... How touching. The voice came from everywhere and nowhere, and I was on my feet in an instant, power already crackling around my hands. Seraphine materialized from the shadows, and she wasn't alone. At least 20 dark witches surrounded the world tree's base, their magic forming a barrier of sickly green light. You really thought you could just waltz in here and take what's mine? Seraphine smiled, cold and cruel. I've been tracking you since our first encounter, watching, waiting, and now you've led me exactly where I needed to go. The staff isn't yours, Darius snarled, shadows already gathering around his hands. It was never meant for you, and yet here I am, and there you are, and I have 20 witches to your 2. She gestured, and the dark witches moved forward. Last chance. Tell me exactly where the staff is buried, and I'll kill you quickly. Refuse, and I'll make you watch each other die slowly. The heat in my blood transformed from distraction to fuel. I felt my magic rise to meet it. Lunar power that had been denied for too long. Alpha strength that had been suppressing half of itself. And underneath it all, the mate bond connecting me to Darius, making us more than 2 separate fighters. Making us one. Darius, I said quietly, not taking my eyes off Seraphine. On 3, he agreed, and I felt his magic align with mine through the bond, shadow and moonlight preparing to dance together. 1, the dark witches advanced. 2, Lunaris's growl shook the ground. 3, the battle that erupted was like nothing I'd ever experienced. My magic poured out of me, no longer wild and uncontrolled, but focused, purposeful, responding to my will instead of my fear. Lunar light became shields, became weapons, became pure force that sent dark witches flying. Darius fought like a demon, his shadow magic wrapping around throats and limbs, disarming and disabling with brutal efficiency. But more than that, we fought together. When I threw up a shield, his shadows used it as a launching point for attacks. When he created darkness to blind our enemies, my light cut through it to strike true. We moved in perfect synchronization, the mate bond making us more than the sum of our parts. But Seraphine was powerful, and her witches were trained. For every one we dropped, another took their place. Dark magic sizzled through the air, and I felt one spell graze my shoulder, burning through cloth and skin. Darius roared, his shadows lashing out at the witch who'd hurt me with deadly precision. Touch her again and I'll rip your heart out. Protective mate, Seraphine laughed. How sweet, and how useless. She unleashed a wave of dark magic that would have killed us both if Lunaris hadn't leaped between us and the attack. The magic hit him full force, and I felt his pain through our bond as his physical form began to break apart. No, I screamed, my power exploding outward in a wave of pure moonlight that threw every dark witch backward. Lunaris's body was dissolving, becoming pure energy, pure light. It's all right, little Alpha, his voice echoed in my mind, sad and gentle and accepting. This form was always temporary. I am the moon goddess's last gift to your bloodline, and gifts must be used. I become what I was always meant to be, power for you to wield, light for you to channel, magic for you and your mate to claim the staff together. Lunaris, use me well, he whispered, and then his physical form was gone, transformed into a sphere of pure lunar energy that hovered between Darius and me. The power was overwhelming. I felt it flow into us both through the mate bond, felt Lunaris's ancient magic enhance our own, felt the connection between Darius and me become so strong, it was almost painful. Together, Darius said, taking my hand. Together, I agreed. We moved as one, our combined magic, shadow and light, witch and alpha, moon and earth, slamming into Seraphine with the force of a hurricane. She threw up shields, but they shattered like glass. She tried to teleport, but our magic bound her in place. She screamed curses and threats and promises of revenge, but her voice grew weaker as our power overwhelmed her defenses. You cannot win, I told her, my voice resonating with lunar power. The staff was never meant for darkness. It was meant for balance, for unity, for those willing to be whole instead of choosing power at any cost. One final surge of magic, and Seraphine vanished, teleported far from this place, her remaining witches fleeing in her wake. The forest fell silent, except for our ragged breathing and the gentle pulse of Lunaris's energy floating between us. The roots, Darius said, pointing to where the world tree's massive roots created a cavern-like space. There, I can feel it. We approached together, still holding hands, and as we got closer, I felt magic responding to our presence. The earth itself seemed to shift, roots moving aside to reveal a hollow space beneath, and there, cradled in ancient wood and glowing with soft silver light, was the lunar staff. It was beautiful, carved from what looked like solidified moonlight, covered in runes that shifted and changed as I watched, pulsing with power that made my skin tingle and my magic sing in recognition. This was what my mother's people had died for, what Darius's parents had sacrificed everything to protect. I reached for it, and Darius's hand covered mine, our fingers intertwining as we lifted the staff together. The moment we both touched it, power exploded through us and a voice filled my mind. Ancient, vast, infinitely patient. Alpha Queen Aurora Silvercrest, Witch Heir Darius Blackthorn, you have proven yourselves worthy. But to activate my full power, to wield the magic of resurrection, you must complete what you have begun. The mate bond must be sealed. Two halves must become one whole. Only then can I grant what you seek. I looked at Darius, saw the same shock and understanding in his eyes. It wants us to complete the bond, right now. The marking, he said quietly, the permanent binding. Aurora, if we do this, I know what it means, and I did. Mate bonds, once completed through the marking ceremony, were eternal, unbreakable. We would be linked for life, able to feel each other's emotions, share each other's strength, bound in a way that went deeper than marriage, deeper than any human connection, and it was the only way to activate the staff. There's something else, the staff's voice continued. A truth you must know before you choose. I possess the power to resurrect the dead, yes, but I am not infinite. I can grant one resurrection, and only one, before I must rest for another century. You must choose who returns, the protective mages who can save your kingdom, or the witch parents who can give your mate his family back. One resurrection, one impossible choice. I looked at Darius and saw the pain in his eyes, the terrible understanding. If I chose the mages, his parents stayed dead. If I chose his parents, my kingdom stayed vulnerable. Choose the mages, he said immediately. Aurora, your kingdom needs... Don't! I cut him off, my heart breaking. Don't make this easier. Don't pretend it doesn't matter. It matters. Of course it matters. But I made my peace with my parents' death years ago. Your people are alive, Aurora. They need those mages. They need... And you need your parents. The words came out raw, desperate. You were 8 years old, Darius. You watched them die. You never got to say goodbye. Never got to... My voice broke. How can I choose my kingdom over giving you that? Because you're a queen. Because duty comes first. Because I've spent 5 years putting duty first and it nearly destroyed me. I was crying now. The heat and the emotion and the impossible weight of the choice all crashing over me at once. I can't do it, Darius. I can't be the person who takes your parents from you again. He cupped my face in his hands, his thumbs wiping away tears. Then let me make the choice. Let me give them back to you. The mages. The protection your people need. Let me do this one thing for you. But your parents would understand. They died protecting the future, Aurora. They'd want me to do the same. He pressed his forehead to mine. Please, let me choose this. Let me choose you and your kingdom and the future we can build together." The staff pulsed between us, patient and waiting. Lunaris's energy glowed softly, and I thought I heard his voice whisper, "There is always another way, little ones. You need only see it." Another way. What other way could there possibly be when the choice was so stark, so absolute? Unless, "We haven't completed the bond yet," I said slowly, an idea forming. "The staff said we need to complete it to activate the power. What if the bond itself is part of the answer?" Darius frowned. "I don't understand." "The mate bond makes us stronger together than apart. What if it's not just about activation? What if the bond changes what the staff can do?" I looked at the glowing artifact between us. "You said one resurrection, but what if two mates bonded completely can do more? What if the prophecy isn't just about finding the staff, but about transforming it?" The staff's voice returned, and this time it sounded almost amused. "Clever, Alpha Queen. Very clever. You begin to see the truth that has been hidden for a century. But to know if you are correct, you must first take the leap of faith. You must complete the bond with no guarantee of what comes after. You must choose each other without knowing if it will save everything or cost you everything." It was the ultimate test, the final impossible choice. Complete the mate bond now, commit to each other eternally, with no certainty about what would happen with the resurrection power afterward. I looked at Darius, really looked at him. The man who'd walked into my throne room and turned my world upside down, who'd fought beside me, protected me, seen all my broken pieces and called them beautiful, who was willing to sacrifice his parents' resurrection for my kingdom without a moment's hesitation. My mate, my partner, my choice. "I'm terrified," I admitted, "of this bond, of what it means, of losing control, of needing someone, of—" "I know," he smiled, soft and understanding. "I'm terrified too, but I'm more terrified of losing you, of walking away and spending the rest of my life wondering what we could have been." The heat in my blood surged, my wolf rising to the surface, demanding I claim what was mine. But this time I didn't fight it. This time I let it rise, let it fuel me, let it burn away the last of my fear. "I mark you," I said, my voice resonating with Alpha command and witch power, and something deeper that came from my very soul. "I choose you, Darius Blackthorn, not because prophecy demands it, not because the staff requires it, but because I want you, because you make me whole, because I'm done choosing duty over love when I can choose both. And I choose you, Aurora Silvercrest," he replied, his own magic rising to meet mine. "My queen, my mate, my everything." We came together in a kiss that was nothing like the gentle exploration before. This was claiming possession, the culmination of every moment of denied attraction and growing connection and inevitable destiny. His hands tangled in my hair, pulling me closer. Mine gripped his shoulders, holding on like he was the only solid thing in a spinning world. Through the mate bond, I felt everything he felt: desire, love, hope, fear, determination, all of it mixing with my own emotions, until I couldn't tell where I ended, and he began. The magic of the bond wrapped around us, through us, binding us together in ways that went deeper than flesh, deeper than blood. When we broke apart, both of us breathing hard, I moved to his neck, to the place where his pulse beat strong and steady. "This will hurt," I warned. "I don't care." My canines lengthened, alpha fangs designed for exactly this purpose, and I bit down on his neck, marking him as mine. He gasped, his hands tightening on my waist, and I tasted his blood, rich and complex and carrying his magic, his essence, everything that made him Darius. The bond snapped into place like a lock clicking home, and suddenly I could feel him, not just his emotions, but his presence, his magic, his very soul intertwined with mine. We were separate people still, but connected in a way that made us more than we'd been apart. "Your turn," I whispered, tilting my head to expose my own neck. His fangs weren't as large as mine. He was witchborn, not alpha, but they were sharp enough. When he bit down, the pain was exquisite, perfect, exactly what my wolf needed to complete the claiming. I felt his magic flow into me through the mark, shadow twining with moonlight, creating something new and powerful and absolutely right. When he pulled back, both of our marks were glowing, his with silver light, mine with shadows threaded through with stars. The mate bond was complete, unbreakable, eternal. and the lunar staff exploded with power. Light poured from it, not silver or gold, but every color at once, and I felt knowledge flooding into my mind. Not just how to use the staff, but what it truly was, what we'd actually done by completing our bond. "Oh," I breathed, understanding crashing over me. "Oh, the prophecy wasn't about choosing at all. The bond transformed it," Darius said, his eyes wide with the same revelation. "The staff's power, it's not limited to one resurrection anymore. It's unlimited," I finished, "as long as we wield it together, as mates, as one." The staff's voice filled the air, no longer just in our minds but resonating through the entire forest. The Alpha Queen and the Witch Heir have done what none before them could. They have become whole. They have chosen unity over division, love over fear, completion over fracture. And in doing so, they have transformed not just themselves, but the very nature of the magic they wield. The lunar staff, once limited, now holds the power of true resurrection. Not one, not chosen, but all who are worthy, all who died protecting what matters, all who deserve a second chance. I stared at Darius, at the mate mark on his neck, at the impossible joy dawning in his eyes. "We can bring them all back. The mages, your parents, everyone." "Not everyone," the staff corrected. "Only those who died in service of protection. Only those whose magic was given in love rather than taken in hate. The fallen mages, the Blackthorn witches, and others throughout the realm whose sacrifice went unmarked and unmourned. They can all return, if you will it so, if we willed it so, together, as mates, as partners, as two halves of a whole that was more powerful than any prophecy had predicted." "There's more," Lunaris's voice whispered, his energy still pulsing around us. "Look, see what else the bond has revealed." A vision opened before us, crystal clear and undeniable. Not the past this time, but the future, possible futures, branching and shifting but all centered around one truth. I saw myself returning to my kingdom not as Aurora, the Alpha Queen who hid her magic, but as Aurora Silvercrest, the Witch Queen, crowned and powerful and complete. Beside me stood Darius, not as consort but as king, his own crown marking him as equal. Around us, the resurrected mages formed a new council, and among them I saw two figures who could only be Darius's parents, alive and whole, and beaming with pride. I saw my kingdom transformed, not just protected, but thriving, with magic and alpha strength working together instead of at odds. I saw schools where young witches learned to control their power, where alphas learned that magic wasn't weakness, but strength. I saw us, Darius and me, with matching marks glowing on our necks, ruling together with wisdom born of having been broken and choosing to be whole. And I saw, in flashes almost too quick to catch, children, our children, born of two worlds, carrying both alpha strength and witch magic, the future of everything we were building. "This is what the prophecy truly foretold," Lunaris whispered. "Not just resurrection, not just salvation, but transformation. The old ways that kept alpha and witch separate, that made you choose between power and magic, between duty and love, all of it can change, if you're brave enough to claim it." The vision faded, leaving us standing beneath the world tree with the lunar staff glowing between us and 48 hours to get back to my kingdom before I lost my throne. "We need to move," I said, already mentally calculating the impossible timeline. "Even with magic, even running full out, we can't make it back in time to—" "Yes, we can." Darius's hand covered mine on the staff. "We have this. We have each other. We have magic that just transformed the impossible into reality. You really think a little thing like distance is going to stop us now?" He was right. We had literally just changed the fundamental nature of an ancient artifact through the power of our bond. Time and space seemed manageable by comparison. "The staff can transport us," I realized. "Not just resurrect. It's power incarnate and we control it now. Then let's go home." Darius's smile was fierce. "Let's go claim your throne. Together." I gripped the lunar staff tighter, felt its power respond to our combined will, felt the mate bond amplifying everything we were. Together. The world tree's roots glowed, and reality bent around us. We were leaving the forbidden forest, returning to the kingdom I'd thought I might lose, carrying power that could change everything. But first, I had a cousin to dethrone, and a council to face. And this time, I wasn't going to face them as half of myself. This time I was going to show them exactly what an Alpha Witch Queen could do. The vision hit me the moment we materialized outside the castle gates, so vivid and real that I stumbled, and only Darius's steadying hand kept me upright. The lunar staff pulsed in our joined grip, showing me not one future but three, each branching from this single moment of choice. In the first vision, I saw the protective mages rise from their century-old graves, powerful and wise, forming a council that would safeguard my kingdom for generations. My throne secure, my people protected, everything I'd come for achieved. But in the shadows of that future, I saw Darius's face, marked by a grief that never fully healed, by parents who stayed dead while strangers lived. In the second vision, I watched his mother and father emerge from death, whole and laughing, embracing the son they'd lost 27 years ago. Darius's joy was incandescent, transformative, but around them, my kingdom crumbled, vulnerable without its ancient protectors, and I saw my throne room empty, my crown melted to slag. And then the third vision crystallized, and I gasped at the sheer audacity of it. I saw the lunar staff's power flowing not into the dead, but into the living, saw dormant magic awakening in bloodlines that had forgotten they carried it, in servants and nobles and guards who'd never known they had witch heritage buried deep in their ancestry, saw 12 points of light igniting across my kingdom like stars being born, creating not ancient protectors, but new ones. A generation of magic wielders who would grow and learn and defend their home, not because they were resurrected warriors, but because they chose to protect what they loved. Aurora? Darius's voice pulled me back to the present. What did you see? Everything. I looked at him, at the mate mark still glowing faintly on his neck, at the man who'd helped me become whole. I saw a choice I didn't know we had, a way to change not just our kingdom, but what a kingdom can be. I explained the vision as we approached the castle, the staff warm between our hands, Lunaris's pure energy form floating above us like a silver star. With every word, Darius's expression shifted from confusion to understanding to something like wonder. You want to awaken magic in the living instead of resurrecting the dead, he said slowly. You want to transform the entire kingdom. I want to stop choosing between pieces of myself and make those pieces the foundation of something new. My voice was steady, despite the enormity of what I was proposing. For centuries, this kingdom has treated Alpha strength and witch magic as opposing forces. What if they're not? What if the real power comes from integration, from people like us who are both? It would be revolution, he said quietly. Complete upheaval of everything the nobility believes. They'll fight you. Some might try to kill you. Let them try. The Alpha in me rose, fierce and ready. I'm done hiding. Done apologizing. Done pretending I'm less than I am to make them comfortable. I turned to face him fully. But I need you to understand. This means your parents stay dead. The staff's power goes to the living, to creating future protectors, not bringing back the past. I can't give you your family back, Darius. I can't. He kissed me, stopping the words, the guilt, the fear. When he pulled back, his eyes were bright with unshed tears, but his smile was real. My parents died protecting the future. They'd want this. They'd want magic to live again, to grow, to flourish. And maybe, his voice caught, maybe part of them will live on in the magic we awaken. Maybe that's a better legacy than simple resurrection. You're sure? I'm sure. He squeezed my hand. Let's go change the world, my queen. We had perhaps 3 hours before the official deadline. 3 hours before my cousin Marcus would be crowned regent, and my claim to the throne would be forfeit. The castle was already preparing for the ceremony. I could hear the sounds of celebration, see banners being hung, smell the feast being prepared in the kitchens. They thought I'd failed, thought I'd abandoned my throne to chase legends, thought the weak woman who couldn't even keep her kingdom was finally, mercifully gone. They were about to learn exactly how wrong they were. I didn't sneak in, didn't hide or plan or strategize. I walked straight through the main gates with my head held high, the lunar staff blazing in my grip, my mate beside me, and Lunaris's spirit shining above us like a declaration of war. The guards at the gate actually dropped their weapons in shock. Your Majesty, one of them stammered. We thought, the council said. The council says a lot of things. I let my alpha power leak into my voice, watching them straighten instinctively. Where are they now? The throne room, Your Majesty, preparing for the regent's coronation. Perfect. I smiled, sharp and dangerous. That saves me the trouble of hunting them down. Word of my arrival spread faster than wildfire. By the time we reached the throne room, people lined the corridors. Servants, guards, nobles, all staring with expressions ranging from shock to fear to something that might have been hope. They saw the mark on my neck, glowing faintly silver. Saw Darius beside me, his own mark visible, his shadows dancing around him like living things. Saw the impossible artifact in our joined hands and the spirit of pure lunar magic floating above us. They saw everything I'd hidden for 5 years, laid bare and undeniable. The throne room door stood open, and I could hear Lord Aldrich's voice echoing within, addressing the assembled nobility. Unprecedented times call for steady leadership, while we all wish our beloved queen well on her spiritual journey. The kingdom cannot wait for... I walked through those doors, and every word died. The throne room was packed with nobles in their finest clothes. Marcus standing on the dais in ceremonial robes, Aldrich beside him holding a crown that should have been mine. They all turned at my entrance, and I watched the color drain from Aldrich's face as he saw me, marked, mated, magical, and absolutely done with their nonsense. "Apologies for my tardiness," I said, into the ringing silence, my voice carrying to every corner of the vast room. I was busy retrieving an ancient artifact and claiming my mate. You know how it is. Aurora. Marcus's voice was carefully controlled, but I could smell his fear beneath the expensive cologne. "We were told you wouldn't return in time. The deadline is 3 hours away." I checked the position of the sun through the windows. Plenty of time to reclaim what's mine. Aldrich found his voice, though it shook slightly. "Your Majesty, this is highly irregular. The council has already voted. Marcus has been named regent, and your companion." He looked at Darius with barely concealed disgust. "You cannot possibly expect us to accept a witch in our court, much less as my mate." I let the word hang in the air like a blade. Darius Blackthorn is my fated mate, chosen by the moon goddess herself. We are bonded, marked and mated, according to every law both ancient and modern. The gasps and whispers that followed were predictable. I'd broken the ultimate taboo, not just refusing to marry within the nobility, but bonding with a witch, the very thing my father had died trying to hide from our bloodline. "Then you have made your choice," Aldrich said, and there was triumph in his voice. "By the ancient laws of this kingdom, any member of the royal family who practices witchcraft or consorts with those who do forfeits their claim to the throne. You have mated with a witch. You have, by your own admission, engaged in magical practices." He gestured to the staff. "You are no longer fit to rule. Ancient laws." I smiled, and several nobles actually stepped back. "You want to invoke ancient laws, Aldrich? Then let me invoke one of my own. By the Alfa right of challenge, any sitting ruler may be challenged for their throne through ritual combat. The challenger must face them in single combat until one submits or dies. The winner takes the crown." "You are not the sitting ruler," Marcus said quickly. "I am regent. You have no right to." "I was never deposed. I never abdicated. My deadline hasn't passed." I let my alpha power fill the room, making everyone except Darius instinctively want to submit. "I am still your queen, and I challenge you, Marcus, for my throne." He went pale. Marcus was alpha too, but he'd never been a fighter, never trained beyond the ceremonial basics. He knew as well as I did that in single combat, I'd destroy him. "This is absurd," Aldrich sputtered. "You cannot." "I can and I am." I set the lunar staff carefully aside, trusting Darius to guard it. "Marcus, do you accept my challenge, or do you yield your claim now?" For a moment I thought he might actually fight. His alpha pride warred with his sense of self-preservation, and I could see the calculation in his eyes. But then he looked at me, really looked at me, and whatever he saw there made him take a step back. "I yield," he said quietly, pulling off the ceremonial robe. "The throne is yours, cousin. It always was." The nobility erupted in chaos, some shouting their approval, others their outrage. But I wasn't done. Not nearly done. "However," I continued, my voice cutting through the noise, "I will accept one more challenge. Lord Aldrich, you have questioned my fitness to rule. You have schemed against me since the day I took this throne. You have used ancient laws as weapons against me. So I challenge you. Not for the throne. You have no claim to that. But for the right to change those ancient laws. To transform this kingdom into something new." Aldrich's face went through several interesting colors. "I am not Alpha. I cannot. You cannot fight me physically, no. But you set the terms by invoking ancient law." I smiled. "Ancient law also allows for trial by ordeal, a test of power to determine the will of the gods. You claim I am unfit to rule because I embrace magic. So prove it. Face me in a test of strength, your Alpha traditionalism against my integrated power. If you win, I abdicate willingly, and this kingdom continues as it always has. If I win, we change everything. The throne room went dead silent. Everyone knew what I was proposing. Not a physical fight, but a demonstration of power. Aldrich was one of the strongest alphas in the kingdom. Decades of experience and pure dominance. But I had magic now. I had my mate bond with Darius. I had stopped fighting half of myself. I accept, Aldrich said finally, because refusing would make him look weak, and weakness was the one thing an Alpha traditionalist couldn't afford. Let the trial begin. The nobles cleared a space in the center of the throne room. Aldrich stood on one side, his Alpha power radiating outward, making the air heavy with dominance. I stood on the other, feeling Darius's presence through the mate bond, feeling Lunaris's energy above me, feeling the magic in my blood finally free to be acknowledged. The rules are simple, I said. We each demonstrate our power. The one who maintains their strength longest wins. No physical contact. Just pure demonstration of what we are. Aldrich struck first, his Alpha dominance slamming outward like a shockwave. Half the nobles in the room dropped to their knees, overwhelmed by the command to submit. Even Marcus bowed his head, unable to resist. But I stood firm, my own Alpha power rising to meet his. We were evenly matched in that regard, both royal blood, both trained from birth in dominance. Is that all? I asked quietly. Just Alpha strength? How predictable. Then I let my magic rise. Lunar power flooded the room, silver light that made the shadows dance and the air shimmer. I didn't attack Aldrich with it, didn't use it as a weapon. I simply let it exist, let everyone see what I'd hidden for 5 years, let them witness the integration of Alpha and Witch. Aldrich pushed harder, his dominance becoming almost painful, trying to force me to submit through sheer willpower. But he was only using half of himself, only drawing on Alpha strength. And I had learned the hard way that half would never be enough. I felt Darius through the mate bond, felt his magic intertwining with mine, shadow and moonlight creating something beautiful and terrible. I felt Lunaris's ancient power flowing through me. I felt my mother's legacy and my father's strength, and every part of myself I'd denied coming together into something whole. The magic and the Alpha power merged, became indistinguishable, became simply me, and Aldrich broke. He fell to one knee, gasping, his dominance shattered against the wall of integrated power I'd become. Around the room, the other nobles stared in shock and awe and fear. You see, I said softly, helping Aldrich to his feet because I wasn't cruel, just determined. The ancient laws were wrong. Magic isn't weakness. Integration isn't corruption. The real weakness is denying half of what we are out of fear. I looked around the room, meeting the eyes of nobles and servants alike. This kingdom was built on the separation of Alpha and Witch. I'm here to tell you that separation nearly destroyed me, and I won't let it destroy anyone else. I returned to the dais, to my throne, and Darius stood beside me as I sat. I am Aurora Silvercrest, Alpha Queen of the Silver Crown Kingdom. I am also a witch, inheritor of my mother's magic, student of powers that have been denied too long, and I am mated to Darius Blackthorn, witch heir and my equal in all things. Together, we claim this throne. Together, we will transform this kingdom. I raised the lunar staff, feeling its power respond to my will, to our will, mine and Darius's together. This artifact has the power of resurrection, yes, but I'm not using it to bring back the dead. I'm using it to awaken the living. Your Majesty, one of the nobles called out. Brave or foolish? What does that mean? It means, I said, letting the staff's power build, that magic isn't dead in this kingdom. It's just been sleeping, buried in bloodlines that forgot they carried it, hidden in people who never knew they had the gift. And today, we wake it up. The staff blazed with light, and I felt through it the presence of 12 souls in the throne room who carried dormant magic. A servant by the door who had witch ancestry 3 generations back, a guard whose grandmother had been a hedge witch, a minor noble whose family had systematically bred out their magical heritage for 2 centuries. And I woke them up. The power flowed from the staff in silver threads, finding those 12 people, igniting the magic that had always been there but never acknowledged. They gasped, some falling to their knees, as power they'd never known they possessed suddenly blazed to life. But there was more. As the magic awakened, I felt presences within it, echoes of those who had come before, spirits who had been waiting for exactly this moment. In a young servant girl whose hands suddenly glowed with healing light, I felt my mother's presence, just for a moment, just long enough for her spirit to speak through the girl's voice. My daughter, my Aurora, you are everything I hoped you would be, strong enough to hide when you needed to, brave enough to reveal yourself when it mattered. I am so proud of you. The girl collapsed, the possession ending as quickly as it had begun, but the healing magic remained in her hands, permanent and true. And in a squire barely 16, whose shadows suddenly danced around him like Darius's own magic, I felt two presences, an older man and woman, witch-born and powerful and loving. Son, they spoke through the boy, and I watched Darius's face crumble as he recognized his parents' voices. You have grown into such a remarkable man. We are sorry we couldn't stay to see it, but we're here now, in this magic, in this new generation. Our legacy lives on, and we are so proud. The squire gasped, the possession ending, leaving him with shadow magic and tears streaming down his face. But Darius was crying too, his hand gripping mine so hard it hurt, and through the mate bond I felt his grief and his joy and his peace all mixed together. The other 10 people who had been awakened stared at their hands, at the magic now singing through their veins. Elemental control, prescience, transmutation, gifts as varied as the people who carried them. This is your choice, I told them, told everyone in the throne room. The old laws said magic was forbidden, dangerous, wrong. I am here to tell you those laws are dead. Magic is a gift, and anyone who carries it can choose to develop it, use it, celebrate it, or not. The choice is yours. I stood, Darius beside me, Lunaris's spirit floating above us. Effective immediately, I established the following laws. Magic is protected in this kingdom. Those who carry it will not be persecuted, burned, or forced to hide. The Academy of Magic will be founded to teach control and ethics to any who wish to learn. And the integration of Alpha strength and witch power will not just be accepted but celebrated. I looked at Darius, at the mate mark glowing on his neck. Darius Blackthorn, witch heir, and my fated mate, I name you king consort of the Silver Crown Kingdom. You will rule beside me, not behind me. Your counsel will be heard. Your magic will be honored. And our bond will be the foundation of a new age. The throne room erupted in noise. Some cheering, some protesting, everyone shocked. But I didn't care about their approval anymore. I cared about truth, about wholeness, about building something better than what had come before. Over the next hours, as the chaos slowly organized itself into acceptance, as nobles who couldn't handle the change departed and those who remained began to adapt, as the 12 newly awakened magic users gathered together in wonder and fear and hope, I felt something settle in my chest. Peace. Real, genuine peace. I was whole for the first time in 22 years. Alpha and witch, queen and woman, powerful and vulnerable, mated and marked and absolutely certain I'd made the right choice. 3 weeks later, standing on the balcony overlooking the city, I felt Darius's arms wrap around me from behind, his chin resting on my shoulder, our mate marks pulsing in synchronization. The academy starts classes next month, he said quietly. 37 students enrolled, more applying every day. Good. I leaned back into his warmth. What else? The nobles who left have started rumors that we're tyrants, that we've corrupted the kingdom with dark magic. Let them. I smiled. The people who stayed know the truth, and more keep coming. Refugees from other kingdoms where magic is still forbidden. Families who heard that here they can be whole. Your cousin Marcus asked for an audience. Granted. He yielded honorably. He deserves to be heard. Darius was quiet for a moment, then, Aurora, there's something else. Something I've been waiting to tell you. I turned in his arms, seeing nervousness in his expression. What? I can feel it, through the mate bond. A new presence, small, but growing. His hand moved to my stomach. You're pregnant. The world stopped. Started again, brighter and more vivid than before. Pregnant, with a child who would carry both Alpha and witch blood, who would be the first of a new generation, who would grow up in a kingdom where they didn't have to choose between halves of themselves. Are you sure? I whispered. Positive. I felt it for days, but wanted to be certain before I said anything. He cupped my face in his hands. We're going to have a baby, Aurora. a child born of both worlds, both magics, both of us. I kissed him, tasting joy and future and hope on his lips. When we broke apart, I looked out over the kingdom, my kingdom, our kingdom, and saw Lunaris' spirit floating above the academy construction site, a permanent guardian for the magic we'd awakened. I spent 5 years proving I was strong enough to rule alone, I said quietly. Spent 5 years hiding, fragmenting, denying, and I thought that was strength. Darius's arms tightened around me. And now? Now I know that true strength isn't about standing alone. It's about choosing who stands beside you, about being whole instead of fractured, about building something better than what came before. I placed my hand over his where it rested on my stomach. I was never meant to be just Alpha, or just witch, just queen, or just woman. I was meant to be all of it, together, at once. The mate mark on my neck pulsed with silver light, and I felt through it everything Darius felt, love and pride and fierce protectiveness, and hope for the future we were building together. And this kingdom, he asked, will finally be whole too. Not Alpha or witch, but both. Not tradition or progress, but integration. Not what it was, but what it could be. I smiled, feeling our child, impossible, perfect, prophesied, growing inside me. We're not breaking the old world, Darius. We're transforming it into something new. Above us, Lunaris' spirit blazed brighter, a beacon visible across the entire kingdom. Below us, the first students of the Magic Academy gathered, learning to control gifts they'd never known they possessed. Around us, a kingdom slowly, carefully, began to change. And inside me, a new life grew. The future made flesh, the prophecy fulfilled not through destruction, but through creation. I had been the Alpha Queen who hid her magic, then the Witch Queen who claimed her power. Now I was simply Aurora, whole and complete and exactly who I was meant to be. And finally, after 22 years of fear, and 5 years of isolation, and 3 weeks of transformation, I was home. Not in a castle or a throne or a kingdom, but in myself, in my mate. In the future, we would build together. The lunar staff rested in the treasury, its power spent but its purpose fulfilled. The ancient prophecy had come true, not as anyone expected, but as it needed to. And as the sun set over the silver-crowned kingdom, painting the sky in shades of silver and shadow, I stood with my mate's arms around me, my hand on the life growing inside me, and I knew this was only the beginning.